The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, but the sound was drowned out by the guttural, soul-wrenching sob coming from the floor. My mother, Evelyn, was on her knees in the middle of the ballroom, her silk dress fanned out like a fallen flag, clutching her chest as if her heart had literally been ripped out. "How could you do this to me?" she wailed, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "After everything I gave up for you. On this night, of all nights." The music stopped. 100 guests, my colleagues, my future in-laws, and my fiancé's high-profile business partners, froze. I stood there, my hand still tucked into the crook of Mark's arm, feeling the heat of 1,000 stares. Mark's grip on my hand tightened, not in comfort but in sheer, paralyzed confusion. I looked down at the woman I had called Mama for 28 years. I didn't see a grieving mother. I didn't see a woman in pain. I saw the slight calculated glint in her eyes through her perfectly manicured fingers. She wasn't crying. She was performing. And with that single fake sob, she hadn't just broken a glass. She had set fire to the only night that was supposed to be mine. I have spent my entire life as a ghost in my own home. My name is Clara, but to my mother, I was always the support. I was the one who stayed home to cook while she took my younger sister, Bianca, to pageant rehearsals. I was the one who worked 2 jobs in college to pay for the emergency repairs on a house my mother refused to downsize. I am a person of quiet corners and soft voices. I'm an architectural designer. I build structures meant to last, things that have solid foundations. Maybe that's why I fell for Mark. He was solid. He was kind. He saw me when I was trying to be invisible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't an ATM or a maid. I was a woman being loved. But in my family, love is a finite resource. If I was getting some, that meant there was less for them. "Clara, you're being selfish," Bianca had whispered to me just a week before the party. We were at the bridal boutique. I had found a simple, elegant cream silk dress. Bianca was lounging on the velvet sofa, scrolling through her phone, complaining that the lighting made her skin look sallow. "How am I being selfish, Bianca?" "It's my engagement party," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom has been so depressed since Dad's anniversary passed," Bianca sighed, finally looking up. Her eyes were sharp, unlike the sweet baby sister persona she put on for Instagram. "And here you are, flaunting this wealth. Mark's family is old money. It makes Mom feel small. You should have just had a backyard barbecue. But no, you had to have the ballroom. You had to have the 5-course meal. You're rubbing it in her face that you're leaving us behind." "I'm not leaving anyone," I said, though my heart hammered against my ribs. "I'm starting a life." "Same thing," Bianca snapped. That was the theme. My happiness was an insult to their struggle. My success was a betrayal of their mediocrity. I had spent years being the good daughter, the one who took the hits so the family stayed upright. But as the engagement party approached, I felt a shift. I wanted this one night. I wanted to be the princess just once. The day of the party, the air felt heavy, like the humidity before a storm. I was at the venue early, checking the centerpieces, white peonies and soft eucalyptus. The scent was divine, calming my frayed nerves. Then, the text messages started. "Mom, 2:14 p.m. My heart is fluttering again. I don't think I can make it, Clara. The stress of seeing you move on is too much for my weak nerves." Me, 2:16 p.m. Mom, the doctor said your heart is fine. Please just come. Mark's parents are looking forward to meeting you properly. Mom, 2:20 p.m. Oh, so now I'm a liar? Fine. I'll come. I'll drag my dying body there if it makes your royal in-laws happy. Just don't expect me to smile. Bianca, 2:45 p.m. Mom is in tears. Happy now. You always have to be the center of attention. Try to think about someone else for a change today. I put my phone face down on the linen tablecloth. My hands were shaking. I looked at the reflection of the ballroom in the gold-rimmed mirrors. This was supposed to be a celebration of love, but it felt like I was preparing for a legal deposition. When the guests arrived, the atmosphere was electric. Mark looked incredible in a charcoal suit, his eyes never leaving mine. For an hour, I forgot. I laughed. I drank a glass of expensive champagne. I felt light. Then she arrived. Evelyn didn't enter. She manifested. She wore a dress that was almost, but not quite, white. It was a pale, ghostly gray that looked like a bridal gown in certain lights. She walked with a calculated limp, leaning heavily on Bianca's arm. "Clara, darling," she said, her voice a theatrical whisper. She didn't hug me. She grabbed my wrists and looked at me with pity. "You look well rested." I wish I could say the same. I spent the morning at the pharmacy. "Mom, please," I whispered, "just for tonight. Can we just be happy?" "I am happy," she cried out, loud enough for a nearby group of Mark's cousins to turn around. "I'm thrilled my daughter is marrying a man who can finally take her away from her burden of a mother." Mark stepped in, his hand firm on the small of my back. "Evelyn, you look lovely. Why don't we get you a seat near the garden window? It's much cooler there." She narrowed her eyes at him. Mark was the only person she couldn't manipulate with guilt because Mark didn't owe her anything. She hated him for it. The night progressed, and I thought, briefly, that we had bypassed the minefield. The toasts were beginning. Mark's father, a man of few words but deep sincerity, stood up. To Mark and Clara, he began, raising his glass. "We haven't known Clara long, but we have seen the way she has brought peace to our son's life. She is a woman of grace, of resilience, and of immense kindness. We are honored to welcome her into our family." The applause was warm. It was the kind of validation I had craved my entire life. I felt tears pricking my eyes, real tears of joy. But then I heard it, a sharp, rhythmic tapping. It was my mother tapping her spoon against her glass. She stood up before the applause even died down. She didn't have a speech prepared. She didn't have a glass in her hand. She just stood there, her face contorting into a mask of sudden, agonizing pain. I can't keep it in anymore," she screamed. That was the moment the glass broke. That was the moment she hit the floor. "Mom." Bianca rushed to her side, instantly on cue. "Mom, what's wrong? Is it your heart?" "It's the betrayal." Evelyn shrieked, her voice rising to a crescendo that silenced the entire room. She told me this morning that once she's married, I'm never allowed to see her. She told me I was an embarrassment to her new, wealthy life. She told me she was going to put me in a home. The room went cold. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked around the room, at Mark's parents, whose expressions shifted from concern to horror, at my friends, who looked confused. "I never said that," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Mom, what are you doing?" "She wants me dead." Evelyn sobbed, burying her face in her hands. She said I was the trash she had to take out before she moved into her mansion. My own daughter. Bianca looked up at me, her face a mask of feigned indignation. "How could you, Clara? On tonight of all nights? You told her those things while she was doing her makeup. I heard you." The lie was so bold, so absolute, that for a second I questioned my own reality. Did I? No. I hadn't spoken to her in person since the day before. "You're lying," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Bianca, you weren't even in the house this morning. You were at the salon. I have the receipts from the credit card I still pay for." Evelyn's sobbing took on a more frantic tone. She began to gasp for air, clutching her throat. "The oxygen. I can't breathe." "Call an ambulance," someone shouted from the back. "No," I said. The word came out sharp and cold. "No ambulance." The room went silent again. My mother froze, her hand still mid-clutch at her chest. She peeked through her fingers at me. Clara, Mark whispered, his hand on my arm. She looks like she's in trouble. She's not in trouble, Mark, I said, stepping forward. I walked right up to where she was sprawled on the floor. I looked down at her. Mom, if you're having a heart attack, I'll call 911 right now. But you should know, Mark's uncle is the chief of medicine at St. Jude's. He's sitting right there at table 4. He's been watching you this whole time. I looked over at Uncle David. He was a silver-haired man with a keen, clinical eye. He stood up slowly. Evelyn, David said, his voice calm and professional. As a doctor, I've seen many cardiac events. Your color is perfect. Your respiratory rate is actually quite high for someone failing to breathe. You're hyperventilating on purpose. Your pulse, which I can see in your neck from here, is steady. Do you want me to perform an emergency tracheotomy? Because if your airway is truly blocked, I'll need to cut. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a sleek silver fountain pen. My mother's eyes went wide. The gasping stopped instantly. She sat up, smoothing her hair with a trembling hand. I think it was just a panic attack, she muttered, her voice suddenly small. The trauma of the verbal abuse. There was no abuse, I said, and this time I didn't whisper. I looked at the crowd. I am sorry, everyone. I am so deeply sorry that you had to witness this. My mother has a very difficult time when she isn't the center of attention. She has a difficult time when I am happy. She didn't want this party to be about my engagement. She wanted it to be about her grief. How dare you? Bianca stood up, pointing a finger at me. You're humiliating her. No, Bianca, I said, turning to her. She humiliated herself. And you helped her. You've both spent years making me feel like I owed you my very breath because you were family. But family doesn't try to destroy your reputation in front of the people you love. Family doesn't lie about elder abuse to ruin a celebration. I turned back to my mother. She was standing now, trying to regain her dignity. But her pale dress was stained with champagne and dust from the floor. She looked small. She looked old. But she didn't look sorry. Get out, I said. Clara, you don't mean that, Evelyn said, trying to reach for my hand. I'm your mother. You can't kick me out of your engagement party. Think of the scandal. What will people say? They'll say, I finally found my backbone. I replied. Mark, could you have security escort my mother and sister to their car? With pleasure, Mark said. He didn't hesitate. He flagged down the 2 men at the door. As they were being led out, Evelyn turned one last time. The mask of the grieving mother was gone. Her face was contorted with pure, unadulterated rage. You'll be back, she hissed. When he leaves you, and he will leave you once he sees what a cold-hearted bitch you really are, don't come crawling back to me. You have nothing without us. Nothing. The doors closed behind them. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I stood in the center of the room, the support who had finally snapped. I felt like I was floating. I expected to feel guilt. I expected to feel that familiar, crushing weight of what have I done? Instead, I felt light. I looked at Mark's parents. His mother, a woman of grace, walked up to me. I braced myself for the judgment. I expected her to tell me that I was too much drama for their family. Instead, she took both of my hands in hers. I am so sorry you had to deal with that alone for so long, she whispered. But honey, the way you handled that, you're exactly the kind of woman I want my son to marry. Someone who knows her worth. Mark came back to my side, slipping his arm around my waist and pulling me close. You okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm finished. The fallout was exactly what you'd expect. By the next morning, Bianca had posted a story on Instagram of her crying, talking about toxic family members and how she was protecting her mother's fragile heart. My phone was blown up with texts from aunts and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, telling me I was cruel and ungrateful. I didn't reply to a single one. I sat in my new apartment, the one Mark and I had picked out together, and I opened my laptop. I went to my bank account. I changed the passwords. I unlinked the joint account I had shared with my mother for emergencies. I canceled the recurring payment for Bianca's car insurance. Then I wrote a single post on my own social media. I didn't post a video of me crying. I didn't list their sins. I simply posted a photo of the sunset from the ballroom balcony. Tonight, I chose a new foundation. To those who were there, thank you for witnessing the start of my real life. To those who weren't, I wish you peace, but I am no longer carrying your weight. The doors are closed. The lights are on. I am finally home. I blocked them, both of them. 3 months later, my wedding was small. There were no pageants. There were no fake heart attacks. There was just a garden, a few close friends, and a family that I had chosen rather than the one I was born into. As I walked down the aisle, I didn't look for a mother's approval. I didn't look for a sister's shadow. I looked at Mark. And for the first time in my life, when I spoke, I didn't have to worry about who I was upsetting. I just said, I do. And for once, the only person I was supporting was myself.